Manana Sidzuas, and happy Easter again to all my colleagues as we're still in the Easter month. The Imina 35 na legislature in Guam is back from recess, and we did entertain two bills that are now in the voting file, so we are now on bill number 334. Senator San Augustine, did you have your hand raised, sir?
Yes, Madam
You're
Speaker.
acknowledged.
I'd like to ask the indulgence of my colleagues that we reconsider the action of the body to move Bill 326 to the voting file, to reconsider, place it back on second reading.
Notwithstanding,
Yes, ma'am, notwithstanding the House rules.
on that motion, is there any objections? There's an objection? Senator Chalai, you have an objection? It's not
Madam Speaker,
debatable.
before we place 334 on the voting file, can I?
Senator Chalai, give me one moment, please. We are asking that we reconsider the actions of the body. So I'm going to go ahead on 336. Are there any objections? 326, just for everybody's clarification, notwithstanding to bring it up from the third reading voting file. Without any objection, motion carries. Senator San Augustine, or Vice Speaker, you are recognized, Vice Speaker.
Just Masi, Madam Speaker, I'd just like to clarify that Bill 326 is in the second reading file. Yes, and so
On that motion to move 336 to the...
326.
326-35 to the second reading, yes, it is already there.
Okay, so we're just going to set that aside and move forward with the rest of the session agenda, and we'll come back to
On
that
the
one.
motion to set aside 326-35, to set it aside at this present time, are there any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Colleagues, we are now on Bill 334-35 COR. At this time, I'll recognize Legislative Secretary Amanda Shelton. You are recognized.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker, I move to place 334 to the bottom of today's agenda.
On that motion, without any objection, there is no motion. Do you have an objection to that, Minority Leader?
Bill 334, Madam Speaker, this is, if they can read the title to this, please? Not sure.
I will go ahead and have the Legislative Secretary read the title.
Bill 334-35 COR is an act to amend Section 19404 of Article 4, Chapter 19, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to enforcement of rules promulgated in an executive order relative to a declared emergency to public health or safety.
Objection, Madam Speaker.
There is an objection. All those in favor of setting 334-35 COR to the bottom of the agenda signify by raising your hand.
Excuse me, Madam Speaker, I object to placing it on the floor. What do you mean, the bottom of the agenda?
Yeah, we moved to set it to the bottom of the agenda, Minority Leader.
I still object. I still object.
On the motion to place 334-35 COR to set it aside and put it at the bottom of the agenda, please signify by raising your hand. 334 at the bottom of the agenda. 1, 2, 3, 4. Senator Therese, to put it at the bottom of the agenda. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Senator
Not
Clint.
enough.
Huh? 7. And Clint?
Still not enough.
Is it up?
Only 6, only 7.
Are both hands up?
Nope.
Huh? On the motion again, so that the clerk can see the hands, please signify by raising your hand to set 334-35 COR aside. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
6.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Motion carries. Legislative Secretary, you are still,
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I'd just like to explain for our body and the viewing public the reason why we put 334 to the bottom of the agenda today is because we are waiting for some legal clarifications to move forward on that bill.
thank you very much. Legislative Secretary, I will...
And for that, yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. For that same reason, I'd also like to move 335 to the bottom of the agenda.
On that motion to move 335-35 COR to the bottom of the agenda.
May I read the title, Madam Speaker?
Yes, you should.
Thank you. 335, an act to add a new item 7 and 8, section 19403 of Article 4, Chapter 19, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the emergency powers of the governor during a public health emergency.
On that motion, are there any objections? Hearing none or seeing none, motion carries. At this time, we will recognize Vice Speaker Nelson on Bill number 313-35 LS.
Madam Speaker, on Bill 313-35. Bill 313-35 is an act to add a new Article 4 to Division 1, Chapter 1 of Title 22 Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing the Unemployment Benefits Act of 2020. And Madam Speaker, I just want to read some of the legal, some of our legal opinions.
Did you want to move it first?
I'd like to read the legal opinion first, Madam Speaker.
Yes, you are allowed to do so. Please proceed.
So, Madam Speaker, it was advised to us that there could be a potential conflict with the federal unemployment assistance. From the outset, we recognize that Bill 313-35 LS, as substituted by the Committee on Rules, has proposed an effective date of January 1st, 2021. The analysis that follows pertains to the law if effective on enactment. Even with a proposed delayed effective date, it is unclear what the impact of such delay will have in terms of Guam's eligibility for assistance under Public Law 116-136. Most notably, we are unable to assess what the state of federal unemployment benefits may be in January 1st, 2021. As federal economic stimulus legislation is ongoing, regardless of the effect of a delayed enactment, we can probably anticipate the issues addressed below may be similar to issues that arise if Bill 313 is effective in the future. If made effective on enactment, Bill 313's Emergency Unemployment Benefits Assistance Supplemental Benefits Act of 2020 may render individuals ineligible for benefits under the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, also known as PUA. Provided under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act of 2020, Public Law 116-36, specifically if Bill 313's unemployment benefits creates a regular compensation benefits program, it would likely trigger outright ineligibility under the PUA program or require a person to wait until Bill 313 benefits are exhausted before applying for relief under the PUA program. In order to qualify for benefits under the PUA program, a person must be a covered individual. Among other things, a covered individual is an individual who is not eligible for regular compensation or extended benefits under state or federal law or pandemic emergency employment compensation under Section 2107, including an individual who has exhausted all rights to regular unemployment extended benefits under state or federal law or pandemic emergency unemployment compensation under Section 2107. Currently, many people on Guam are not eligible for regular compensation benefits because there is no regular compensation program under Guam law. However, Bill 313 could be construed as a regular compensation program, an unemployment program which would then render people in Guam However, arguably, Bill 313 would be construed as a regular compensation program, i.e. an unemployment program, which would then render people in Guam eligible for regular compensation benefits under Guam law and probably ineligible under the PUA program. Under the PUA program, regular compensation means compensation payable to an individual under any state law or the unemployment compensation plan of a political subdivision of a state, and when so payable includes compensation payable pursuant to 5 U.S.C. Chapter 85, Parts 609 and 614 of the chapter, but not including extended compensation or additional compensation. So, Madam Speaker, in Bill 313 that we were going to substitute on the floor, that I would like to have substituted on the floor, we put an enactment date of 2021. And so I asked our legal counsel to review this enactment date after to see if it would negate or somehow do any harm from receiving federal program assistance of the Unemployment Act. And so within it, it states what covered individuals are. And since Guam does not have an Unemployment Benefits Act, it doesn't have any compensation law, it does not have unemployment insurance, I asked to see if we could still move forward with the Unemployment Benefits Act. And this was also as a supplemental act, which we were going to substitute on the floor for those that were furloughed, for those that have lost hours. However, we were cautioned that it could create a conflict of Guam being able to receive federal funding under the PUA program through the CARES Act. And so, Madam Speaker, we wrote a letter to the United States Department of Labor asking them if the substituted form, which would include the supplements, would negate Guam from being able to avail to the federal funds that is already provided, that is already passed into law, that the people are waiting for due to the impact of the coronavirus. We have yet to receive word from United States Department of Labor to see if that's going to impact our, to see if this bill would impact us receiving the PUA program. So at this time, Madam Speaker, I'd like to set this bill aside until we get more clarification from United States Department of Labor and to be able to move forward from there, because we do not in any way want to impact the assistance through the PUA program that the federal government is giving to all states and territories. We want to ensure that our people benefits to the maximum ability that we can allow the people to benefit. And we just want to take caution to ensure that this bill does not hinder that. And so it would behoove us to put this bill set aside and to see what United States Department of Labor says, whether this bill will impact the PUA program. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
On the motion to set aside Bill 313-35 LS, are there any objections? Seeing none or hearing none, motion carries. Right now, colleagues, the next item on the agenda is Bill number 332-35 CR. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are still recognized.
Sujusmasi, Madam Speaker. Bill number 332-35 is an act to add a new subsection 4124 Bravo 1 of Chapter 4, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to creating an exemption from the service learning graduation requirement for 12th grade students of the school year 2019 and 2020, and requiring the Superintendent of Education Madam Speaker, I just need a minute to address the clerk, so can I just go into a quick recess? Forgive me.
We are in recess. Imina 35 na la legislature in Guam is back from recess. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are still recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill number 332, I'd like to make a motion to move Bill number 332-35 as substituted on the floor into the third reading file and
To
discuss
accept.
it.
And to accept.
That's fine. To accept Bill number 332-35 COR as substituted on the floor into the third reading file and to discuss it.
And if you can, just for clarity's sake, read the title, Madam Vice Speaker.
Yes. Bill number 332-35 COR as substituted on the floor is an act to add a new subsection 4124 Bravo 1 to Chapter 4, Title 17 GCA relative to creating an exemption from the service learning graduation requirement for all high school students enrolled during school year 2019-20.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Vice Speaker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill number 332-35 COR is an act to add a new subsection 4124 Bravo 1 of Chapter 4, Title 17 Guam Code annotated relative to creating an exemption from the service learning graduation requirements of all high school students enrolled during school year 2019-2020. In accordance with Public Law 30-53 requires Guam Department of Education is required that high school students complete 75 hours of service learning in order to graduate from high school, beginning with the 9th grade class in the school year 2011 and 2012. We recognize that the service learning requirement, as established, requires students to actively participate in organized service activities. We also recognize that due to the novel coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak, many students are unable to physically participate in these activities. Thus, it is the intent to create an exception of all high school students for the school year of 2019-2020 from the requirements set forth in Public Law 30-53. So, Madam Speaker, the original bill was submitted to exempt 12th grade students, but we also, speaking with some of my colleagues, we also realize the reality that it does impact the other grades as well. And so when we come back to the school year, next school year, we will ensure that service learning hours are continued. However, our students within the Guam Department of Education will not be penalized for the reality that we face today. And so the reality is we are under shelter in place. The schools are closed for the rest of the school year. And so we want to make sure that our seniors can still graduate, and we want to make sure that our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors can move to the next higher grade. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask my colleagues for their support. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, just one more thing. We received a joint letter from the Office of the Superintendent and also a Guam Education Board resolution supporting these measures.
Situus Masi, Vice Speaker. Anyone else on the main question? On the main motion, Senator Joseph Augustine, I will recognize you, then Senator Will Castro.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to rise in support of this bill, especially the substitute, specifically the substitute, because it does recognize all grades. And I look forward and my colleagues supporting this bill and in moving and passing to ensure that all the students will be able to get to the next grade and be able to graduate when it's duty time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Castro, then Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise also in support of the measure and do thank the prime author for putting it forward, given these extenuating circumstances. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome. Senator Lee, you are recognized.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker, and Buenas and Hafa Day colleagues. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of Sub-Bill 332-35, and I want to thank the Oversight Chair on Education for her work to ensure that our public school system has all the tools that is needed during this very unprecedented time. You know, Madam Speaker, as a mother of a public school student myself, I got an earful about the decision to keep campuses closed for the remainder of the school year. And it's a very difficult decision for students and faculty, and I want to be clear that I support the very tough call made by our superintendent and the Board of Education. But Madam Speaker, it's also important that we as a body acknowledge the critical community service that's being provided by Team GDOE. Thousands and thousands of families in our community have had a hot meal thanks to their Grab and Go program. And I know that tens of thousands of children now have access to low and no tech learning opportunities. Madam Speaker, ending this school year is not an excuse to end public education. So I'm so thankful and grateful to all the professionals at GDOE who are really trying their best to provide these resources even during this unprecedented public health emergency. But it's important to remember that the legislature is needed to help in that effort. And this measure is the very first piece of that. The authority is needed to have current seniors graduate from high school and also to have the other grades advance to the next level. So the mandate of service learning hours came from this body, it came from the legislature, and so now it's important that it's up to us to really build in an exemption for this school year and for this, again, unprecedented and very dynamic situation that we find ourselves in. Madam Speaker, I'm sure all of the members of this body will join me in really looking forward to the day when our public schools can open again, when our little ones can see their friends, where they can learn from adults and peers. But until that day comes, Madam Speaker, our role should be to support GDOE in its mission to help our children and our teachers and the staff stay safe from COVID-19. And so I ask my colleagues to please support this measure and all the measures that are before us that will help us to do just that. To Dios Masi.
Buen provecho, Senator Lee. Anyone else on the main motion? Legislative Secretary, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I too rise in support of this measure and like to thank the main sponsor of the legislation for recognizing this as an issue for us to address as a legislature, and also the superintendent and all of the fine people at the Department of Education who continue to work to continue the education at home for our students. And I'd just like to recognize some of the students at the Department of Education who, though they're not able to go out and make these service learning hours as they usually would, volunteering in their churches, doing cleanups, helping the community in different ways. I know that many of them are stepping up right now and doing things that they can at home. I saw a student making face masks to donate to our frontline workers, and other students who are collecting donations so that they can help families and different organizations in the community who are assisting. So I know that our students may be home and learning in a different way right now, but a lot of them are stepping up and continuing these service learning hours in a different way. So I want to recognize them for that and encourage their peers to do the same. So I know that this is a difficult time for all of us, but we are all adapting and moving forward and getting through it together. And I just like to highlight that we have some great leaders that we will see in the future who are doing these things on their own accord, and we are certainly proud of them. Thank you.
Jesus Masi, Legislative Secretary. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone on the main motion? If not, Vice Speaker, you can close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And may I, for the record, request that the clerk includes the Guam Education Board resolution as well as the joint letter from the superintendent to show their support for these measures.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Vice Speaker?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in closing, I just want to thank the Guam Department of Education teachers and staff. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing, for being motivated through this precarious and troubled time, providing meals to the whole island of Guam. And that was only done with, couldn't have been done without the hard work that the superintendent and his team has worked to ensure. In the beginning, there was a concern with how are these children going to get fed, and there was a focus only for the Guam Department of Education students. However, Guam Department of Education went the extra mile to ensure that they could provide meals for everyone island-wide. And so I'd like to thank them every day, every morning. They're providing meals for our students, for our children. Really, this is a true testament to the good work that they are doing, contributing back to the community, taking care of our children, showing that they are loved and cared for, not only within their families, but also within the community. This is our foundation of Inafa Malik. It's what our grandparents raised us on. And I'd like to thank them truly for all their hard work, for them willing to risk the safety of themselves and their families to go out there and give back to our community. So Ndonklu Nasi Masi to all those that are participating, and I even believe the Sodexo employees are out there as well. And so I'd like to thank them. Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion at this time to add co-sponsors to the bill. I'd like to add Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Jocelyn Augustine, Senator Therese Terlahi, Senator Regine Visco-Lee, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, Speaker Barnes, Senator Perez Jose Pito Terlahi, Senator Camacho Torres, Mary Camacho Torres, Senator Will Castro, Senator Jim Moylan, Senator Luis Borja Muña, Senator Tello Taidagui, in that order.
On that motion,
Did you not? I did.
on that motion, are there any objections?
You said he didn't want.
Hearing or seeing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you,
Anna.
Madam Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to move Bill number 332-35 COR into the third reading voting file.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized on Bill 339-35 COR.
Madam Speaker, I'd just like to confirm if I have 1 minute to confirm with the clerks for the substituted version. Thank you. 1 minute of recess.
On that motion, we are in recess for a moment. Imina 35 na legislature in Guam is called back from recess. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are still recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to clarify, we're going to move forward with Bill number 339-35 COR as introduced. And I believe we have an amendment to this bill as we move forward from one of our colleagues. So Bill number 339-35 COR is an act to amend subsection 715 of Chapter 7, Title 1, Guam Code Annotated, relative to creating an exemption during school year 2019-2020 from the 900 instructional hours requirement for Guam Public Schools as mandated by Public Law 35-77, to move it to the third reading file and to discuss.
Vice Speaker, please proceed.
Thank you. We find that Public Law 35-77 as amended of Chapter 7, Title 1 GCA to require 900 hours per school year for both elementary and secondary schools. We realize that the closure of Guam's public schools due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the Guam Department of Education may be unable to provide the 900 instructional hours as required. So, Madam Speaker, we just passed this law last session where we converted the 180 instructional days to 900 instructional hours. And so because of the impact of the coronavirus, we need to go back and provide an exemption for this school year. Our students have missed a lot of instructional hours. However, Guam Department of Education, their teachers and their staff are still working, providing online education services to the students. From my knowledge, teachers are even working with parents to pick up lessons, hard copy lessons for their child to learn at school. So education is still ongoing, even though we closed down the schools. And there's still an opportunity for the students to learn with the guidance of the teachers working with the parents. And so the parents, many of our parents are homeschooling their kids right now, sitting down, going through the lessons with them. And it's very interesting to hear some of them saying that they need to go back to school when they're trying to teach their child math, even at the 5th grade level. So it's a rather encouraging time to see our families pulling together and sitting down with their children and investing in their children and giving them the attention that their children need and deserve to move forward with their education. Because come next school year, we don't want them to be left behind in the curriculum. So we want to ensure that they're continually developing their skills, their cognitive skills, their analytical skills, their math skills, their reading skills. So I'd like to thank all the teachers who prepared these lessons for them, the staff and the principals, and to ensure that it is available to the children and their parents. And colleagues, I humbly ask for your support.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. On the main motion, on the main question, is there anyone wishing to speak? If not, Vice Speaker Nelson, can you move for closing?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd just like to make a motion to include our colleagues on this bill to be co-sponsors.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to move Bill number 339-35 into the third reading voting file.
On that motion, without any objection, seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Vice Speaker. Assistant Majority Leader on Bill number 331-35 COR. Senator Marsh Taichino, you are recognized.
Sutuus Maasi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to accept Bill number 331-35 COR as substituted on the floor. It should have been sent in. I will just double check with the clerk that it has been sent in.
Senator, if you can read the title, please, and the introduction. As introduced by.
Dispense to Madam Speaker for taking a minute. The title was part of what was amended and substituted. So this is Bill 331-35 COR as introduced by myself. The former bill had several co-sponsors, but a moment of time, I'd like to add them in later. The former co-sponsors are Senators Jose Pito Terlahi, Vice Speaker Talina Cruz Nelson, Senator Clinton E. Rigel, Speaker Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, and Senator Joseph S. San Agustin. So the revised title is Acton Protehi y Manzamonana gi Tiempon Sinetsaga sa Maprotehi Hit Torus. Protecting our frontline responders to Save Us All Act. An act to add a new Section 19805.1 to Article 8 of Chapter 19, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated of the Islan Guahan Emergency Health Powers Act, relative to prohibiting open burning activities and suspending burning permits by clarifying what constitutes open burning, expanding the authority of the Guam Fire Department regulating outdoor cooking, and increasing the penalties for wildfires from a misdemeanor or a civil fine to arson of the second degree during a state of public health emergency.
Senator Titano, we're going to take a moment's recess so that the clerk can verify. We're in a moment's recess. Imina 35 na legislature in Guahan is back from recess. Senator Marsh Taitano, you are recognized.
Sujuis Masi, Madam Speaker. At this time, I'd like to set the bill aside.
On the motion to set aside Bill 331-35 COR, is there an objection? Seeing none, motion carries. Colleagues, we are now on 333-35 COR. Senator Teresa Lai, you are recognized.
Good morning, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I'd like to move to place Bill number 333-35 COR substituted on the floor. And this is a new substitute version. On our drive, you can find it as S Bill 333-35 COR TMT 4-1320. Bill introduced by myself, co-sponsored by Senator Sabina Perez and Senator James Moylan. It's an act relative to the rapid and transparent implementation of federal and local assistance programs related to COVID-19. And I'd like to place this into the third reading file and would like to speak on the bill, Madam Speaker.
Move to accept.
Oh, move to accept the substitute version, yes.
On that motion, Senator Lee, you are recognized. Senator Lee, I apologize, I can't hear.
If I could, yeah, it's in our drive, and it's been added, Bill 333-35, and at the end it says TMT 4-1320, that version.
On that motion to accept, Senator Lee,
I apologize, Madam Speaker, I'm still not seeing it. So I just want to make sure that everybody has it in front of them before we proceed. Thank you.
thank you.
If I might
Senator Lee, I
suggest,
will
Madam
confirm.
Speaker, I've had to go back to refresh in my shared drive each time to get these new updates from the clerk.
I will verify.
Madam Speaker, on the screen, it shows two Word documents and 2 PDF. If the clerk can just, like she did on the previous bill, just delete
Yes.
the others that we don't need to see, and then it'll be easier.
Well, I'm sure the clerk is waiting for the motion to
Right,
pass.
in order
Madam
for us to accept, Senator, to delete that previous bill that was already uploaded, we would have to accept the motion. So-
Madam Speaker, there's 4 substitute bills, 2 Word documents.
I'm gonna take
Okay,
a moment
thank
to
you.
recess.
Madam
Thank you,
Speaker,
Madam
if-
Speaker.
Clerk. Imina 35 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. Senator Therese on the motion to accept Bill 333-35 COR as substituted. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries. Senator Therese, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move that substituted bill to the third reading file, and I'd like to speak on the bill, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed, Senator Terlahi.
Thank you. Congress and the President have passed unprecedented relief packages for individuals and businesses who've been impacted by the COVID-19 global pandemic, and authorized large sums of funding to assist the government of Guam in its fight to save lives during this pandemic. The island has been sheltering in place since March 16th in order to prevent the spread of the virus. The COVID-19 pandemic on Guam has crippled numerous private sector businesses and left many employees furloughed or unemployed. The government of Guam must act swiftly to bring much-needed economic relief to the people of Guam and access the federal assistance opportunities of Public Law 116-136, also known as the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act that was passed by Congress. We've been told that the local implementation of the CARES Act is somewhat dictated by federal timelines, and I commend the staff trying to set these programs up locally. Bill 333-35 ensures accountability and assures a rapid response from our government agencies by mandating it through statute. We incorporated changes after discussion with my colleagues and our legal counsel to ensure that we are not overstepping our authority as a co-equal branch of government to the administration and the judiciary. Substitute Bill number 333-35 does the following. It authorizes the governor to hire temporary employees or temporarily redirect existing employees to implement and expedite the federal and local programs, including processing and issuance of tax refunds. Suggests a 5-day time frame for the government of Guam to reasonably attempt to execute all necessary memorandum of understanding and memoranda of agreement with federal partners and implement the programs, and to provide copies of all these agreements promptly to the legislature. It directs the Department of Revenue and Taxation to establish procedures to implement the federal cash assistance program program and restrict garnishment to child support, notwithstanding any other law, local law. Excuse me. It directs the Guam Department of Labor to create rules to implement the unemployment assistance program authorized in the CARES Act, and asks the Department of Revenue and Taxation to assist Department of Labor in collecting required information for the pandemic unemployment insurance program by requiring businesses who want to renew their business licenses to submit information needed by Department of Labor. It protects the legislative authority to appropriate funds as needed. The government of Guam is estimated to receive approximately $115 million in coronavirus relief funds. The federal treasury will be fronting this money to the states and territories by approximately April 24. Forgive me, Madam Speaker. It requires a monthly accounting and reporting of the expenditure of all COVID-19 related funds, and it mandates a semi-annual audit by the Office of Public Accountability. And I know the administration, the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and the Department of Labor have been working tirelessly to get our people the economic relief they desperately need at this point, and this is not in any way a criticism of the staff at these agencies or their efforts. This measure is intended to ensure transparency and unite the efforts by Guam's congressmen, the legislature, the governor, and the judiciary so that aid is distributed without delay. I humbly ask my colleagues to support the passage of Bill 333-35. Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Buen Bobetsu, Senator Therese. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone wish to speak? Senator Sabina Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 333 and thank the good author for including me as a co-sponsor. In these difficult times, we must do everything in our power to protect our healthcare workers, our first responders.
Madam Speaker,
Yes,
forgive me, Senator Perez. We cannot hear her.
I understand. I was just going to ask if Senator Perez can come to the podium right in front of the session hall.
Let me just.
Thank you, Senator Parrish. You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill, and I thank the good author for allowing me to be a co-sponsor. I think in these difficult times, it's necessary to protect our first responders and healthcare workers and those most vulnerable to this virus. We must also take every measure necessary to protect local businesses and provide the economic relief to our people. This means our government must provide funding in an efficient manner, must react quickly to the federal stimulus programs. And I'm really pleased and thankful that the governor and the administration has worked diligently and hard to get the stimulus funds out as quickly as possible. But while reacting swiftly, we must also not forget our responsibility. The legislature must continue to perform its duties, including the responsibility to monitor and appropriate government funds. And we must ensure that these government funds are expended in a transparent manner. I think Bill 333-35 provides a strong balance, ensuring accountability and providing necessary funding in a responsive manner. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Senator Parrish. Anyone else on the main question? Senator Mary Torres, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask the sponsor of this measure a couple questions, if she'll so yield.
Please state the question. Thank you.
My question is on Section 3, requiring 5 business days after enactment of this act for the government to sign all necessary MOUs and establish all necessary programs to effectuate the provisions of HR 748. The question that I have is, are we in a position now where all the guidelines, federal guidelines, have in fact been established and disseminated to the states and territories of the United States?
Thank you. Senator Therese, would you like to yield?
Sure, Madam Speaker. And no, I don't believe that all the guidelines have been instituted, and I believe that the Department of Revenue and Taxation has submitted their proposed plan and are waiting for approval any day. They're hoping this week. And I know that the Department of Labor are also waiting for certain things. The 5 days, Madam Speaker, is it's been amended in the bill to read, shall reasonably attempt to execute these memorandum. And the bigger part of this section, Madam Speaker, is that, you know, when they sign these agreements on behalf of Guam, we've asked that they submit a copy to you, Madam Speaker, promptly, and that when these are fully executed by the United States government, that those fully executed documents are also sent to us. So yeah, we ask that they do this within 5 days, if reasonably possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Therese. Senator Torres.
Yes, Madam Speaker, so then that makes sense in terms of us mandating something which arguably is a moving target. But I have a follow-up question, though, to on Section 6, it states that notwithstanding any other provisions of laws, any funds that may be subject to legislative authorization or appropriation for expenditure pursuant to HR 748 shall not be expended without the express consent of the Legislature in Guam and are not subject to transfer. My question is to the author, this appears to contemplate the use of government funds somehow in the COVID-19 relief effort. And does the author contemplate that there are matching funds, for example, that would require authorization from the legislature? Because as I understand it, the funds that we're dealing with, the federal funds that are coming to Guam in federal aid, are not the funds of the local government that are typically under the purview of the Guam Legislature to appropriate. So I'm just trying to understand the relevance of Section 6 to the situation at hand with regard to HR 748 and all the relief through the CARE Act, if she can so indulge me.
Thank you. Senator Therese.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I will yield to that question. I thank the senator for the question. So the section provides that any funds that may be subject to legislative authorization or appropriation shall not be expended without that appropriation. And it cites the public law, the U.S. public law, of course, and that these funds would not be subject to transfer. It's unclear to me at this point whether all of the funds that are going to be sent to Guam are outside of legislative appropriation, or even whether any of them require local authorization or local matching funds. So at this point, I'm not sure, and that's why the language says any that may be subject to legislative appropriation. I understand that in our Guam Code annotated, there's a whole chapter of regarding federal funds, and that chapter says over and over that all federal funds are subject to legislative appropriation. But I'm sure that my colleague is aware that there is a case that says that grants are not, and so there are certain funds. It depends on how Congress states it and how Congress gives it. That would not, so some of those federal funds would not be. So this is just trying to catch those that may be, and if we have an argument for that then of course that we reserve our right to appropriate those funds, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Torres.
Yeah, so in that vein, I understand that she's preserving the right in the event, and that, I suppose the catch-all is any MOUs and MOAs that are required to be filed with us should in fact alert us to the potential need for authorization. But as I understand the way that the CARE Act is, the likelihood of it having another tier of appropriation at the legislative level, I believe, is not going to be the case in this emergency relief effort. But I understand the author's overextension in the event, or the unlikely event. So thank you for the response.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Anyone else on the main motion? Anybody else? Senator Joseph Augustine, I will recognize you.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. My colleagues, if you follow along with the bill, and after our colleagues have asked questions, you find that this bill pretty much, it's a catch-22. If there's something going on that we should know, we should be informed. Number two, if there is any expenditure or whatever money is coming, we should know how it's supposed to be spent. And number three, if there's a requirement for us to act, please advise so that we can act. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome, Senator San Augustine. Anyone else on the main? Senator Tello Taitigui, Minority Leader, you're recognized.
CJS Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in support, or I sit in support of this legislation. I greatly appreciate the good author of this legislation to ensure transparency and most especially accountability as such in Section 8. I had the opportunity, Madam Speaker, just the other night speaking with former Senator B.J. Cruz and now the public auditor about, transparencies and reports that need to go out. So I greatly appreciate that Section 8, the OPA shall conduct semi-annual audits of all expenditures on Guam associated with HR 748. which is now Public Law 116-36, for compliance with all applicable law, local and federal laws, and may require from agencies or the governor's information required to complete the audit. So I stand, like I said, I sit in full support of this measure and ask to be a co-sponsor of this measure as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Anyone else on the main question? Anyone else? Senator Jim, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just wish to confirm with clerks, an amendment was issued. I'm hoping that made it. I don't see it yet on our.
Senator Moylan, you have an amendment?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Just waiting clarification from clerk to ensure that it's on our website or on the Google, please.
And Madam Speaker, can we just get clarification where we can find the amendments?
It should be on. Does everybody see it? Senator Jim, you can proceed.
Where is it at, the amendment?
For our colleagues, it's SB 333 JCM FA L12P3. Does everybody have it now?
So, Madam Speaker, if I may, if you go to Shared With Me and you go under the folder FAs,
L12P3.
you click on that, and you should see it. Yeah.
Again, to my colleagues, it's SB 333 JCM FA L12P3.
Yeah.
Hang on to that. Give it back to her, I mean. I do apologize. Senator Moylan, you can proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am in full support of this bill, 33335, but I also believe we can strengthen it some with one amendment that is being introduced. And the bill itself talks about how we are able to see on the funding side and to get that information that we seem to always struggle to get from the administration regarding funding and reporting period of reports. So the transparency is really important. But this law affects a lot more than just the financial side. So with the amendment to 333-35, I'd like to read it. I'd like to amend line 12, page 3, and that is just simply to add section 7. As it reads, any action by the governor or by the public health authority pursuant to subsection 19403, all of Article 5 and subsection 19608, all of Chapter 19, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, shall be reported to the legislature within 5 days of the close of each calendar month. The report shall include a clear description of the actions pursued, but not limited to any listings and/or compensations for seized properties or facilities, hiring, or any action pursuant to this chapter.
Senator Jim, if I may?
Yes, Madam
Can we
Speaker.
just do that correction? Are you putting it on section 6 or section 7? Because you saw section 7, but you said line 12.
Oh, okay.
So
So it should be the last.
section 7
Oh.
is on line 17.
Line correction. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay. And if I can just kind of explain where this amendment is coming from. You know, like for example, Article 5 of Chapter 19 deals with, I mentioned the seize of properties and facilities, and along with compensation of these seizures. We as a body, we should know what facilities are taken and what the procurement contracts were issued, and was there fair compensation at the end of all this happening. Of course, we don't want to delay anything that is absolutely necessary to combat the epidemic situation, and we're not tying the hands of that, but at the end, we want to see these reports so we can understand what took place. Again, the transparency. Likewise, with subsection 19403, there's an array of emergency authorities that it's at the governor's own decision, within discussion with the federal partners. And what were these discussions, and what took place, or what didn't take place? Again, transparency. And then there's subsection 19608. It regards hiring of licensed personnel. And we know this is vital and it must be done, but who and for the purpose of? Again, just transparency. So the law, other than what this bill is now that we're trying to do, the law itself doesn't require any reporting of the governor. And this bill has been described to us like a super bill. I'm sorry, a super law, the current law. So let's add some transparency. We want our governor to proceed as quickly as possible, but we need to have the knowledge of what all took place. And without just a little amendment here, we wouldn't know that. And it will be, as we know, a struggle to try to get information at the end. But ultimately, the bottom line is just to prioritize transparency. And I ask my colleagues for their support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Again, Senator Jim, that is, if you can make the correction, instead of line 12, it would be on line 17. Is that your intent?
I'd like to make that correction instead of line 12, Madam Speaker, line 17. Thank you.
On the amendment, does anyone wish to speak on the amendment? Anyone wishing to speak? Senator Joseph Augustine, I will recognize you.
Madam Speaker, can the author of that amendment explain, is this COVID-driven or is this a catch whatever? This bill is about COVID-driven. It's about accountability of whatever funds we're going to get, wherever it's going to be spent, that we all know about it. And I'm trying to understand your amendment. Your amendment doesn't talk about COVID, and I just want to make sure that it's in line with it. If you want to introduce something to get the governor to start, or downtown to start accounting for what's going on, then introduce a bill for such, but don't add it onto something that's talking about COVID. This is all talking about all the federal money that may come in, whatever was authorized by the CARES and everything, we want it to be accounted for. We want it to be transparent. If it ain't driven by COVID, then I object to any of the amendments. The bill is actually is written quite good. I have to give them, I have to admit that.
Thank you, Senator. So are you posing that as a question to him? Would you like to yield, Senator Jim?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I would like to yield. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the amendment, and just like the bill, addresses 10 GCA, Chapter 19, and in which the governor has authorized her authority to use, and which, since this became law back in Public Law 25-173, it's never been activated. And it can be activated for several reasons, whether COVID or not COVID, whether some new disease or something else. If it's all health related, that's the object of Chapter 19. And as we go through Chapter 19, we see all the powers the governor is given, which I don't fault. I think it's all good, and it's an emergency situation, and we must get this done as quickly as possible. And in this case, it's COVID. But what's the next case, or the next case after that? Where is our reporting going to come from? If we don't address this now, we'll end up trying to address it later. And we've seen this time and time again when we try to get information out, and we're not allowed to, or it's put on the back burner, it's just not addressed. But why we're talking about being transparent with federal funds and related to Chapter 19, address the chapter as well. You know, it's just not federal fundings. What about the property seized, a business seized for the purpose of, in this case, COVID? In the next case, who knows? But why was that business seized? What was the compensation? Was it fair and just? We're not trying to prevent the governor, whether this governor or future governor, the authority to use this chapter because it's so important. What we're just asking for is transparency. If we're going to be transparent about funding, be transparent about seizure of facilities, be transparent about discussions with our federal partners about hiring other personnel. That's all this amendment is about. It's just transparency to whatever case that the governor now or in the future wants to use. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jim. Senator San Augustine.
Madam Speaker, my colleagues, the bill is an act relative to the rapid and transparent implementation of federal and local assistance programs related to COVID-19. Let's stick to the subject. If you want to add and amend another bill or another law, then introduce it and we'll entertain it then. I just like to stick with the issue and let's entertain this bill, not add any other issues to it. Thank you.
So that you'll register that as an objection. Thank you very much. Anyone else on the Moylan amendment? Anyone else? Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized.
Can we just, Madam Speaker, there's some colleagues that are telling me that they're still not able to see the amendment. Can we just go for a quick recess?
We're in a moment's recess. Anytime. Imina 35 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. There is an objection on the amendment. Senator, Minority Leader, you're recognized on the amendment.
Madam Speaker, there was a question I have to the author of the amendment, and maybe incorporate an amendment to that amendment,
Please
if
state
this
your
is the
question.
opportunity. Okay. So the area that discussed on the last line where it says any listings and/or compensation for seized properties or facilities, hiring or other actions pursuant to this chapter. So what happens on not acquired, but what was that word, Louise? Huh? If property was actually utilized, contracted for certain properties, because contract and seize is totally different. And if I may just incorporate compensation for either contracted or seized properties or facilities.
Right, so before you make that amendment, Senator Moylan, would you like to yield to that question from the Minority Leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have no objections to the amendment.
She asked a question.
Right, we just wanted to add the contracted in addition to seized, if I understand the question correctly.
Yeah,
Madam
if it would, if I may, Madam Speaker.
Yes,
Okay, I tell you what, there'll be no question to it. I think that it's self-explanatory that contracted and seized are totally different. So to incorporate that is just a simple amendment, and that is to compensation for, and then right after for is contracted or seized properties or facilities. Very simple.
So state that one more time, Senator, on the line of the amendment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So right after
The
any,
word,
it's the last sentence, Madam Speaker. And I guess I'll start from that sentence. The last sentence on this amendment is, the report shall include a clear description of the actions pursued, but not limited to, any listings and/or compensation for, and this is the inclusion of, and then you include for contracted or, and then continue on with seized properties or facilities, hiring or other actions pursuant to this chapter.
on that amendment, to the amendment. Are there any objections? There's an objection. All those in favor, or anyone else like to speak? If not, would you like to close, Senator? Or Senator Therese, I'll afford you the opportunity to speak on the Senator Titagui's amendment. Okay. There has been an objection. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion fails. Anyone else on the Moylan amendment? Senator Marsh Taitsunu, you are recognized.
Sutuas Maasi, Madam Speaker, and dispensa to forgive me if I missed the answer to what I hoped to ask, if it was proffered already. But I do have a point of inquiry for the author.
Please state your question.
Yes, so I'd like to know if he got clarification from legal if this is germane, since it goes beyond the scope of the bill.
The question for the amendment is germaneness. Senator Moylan, would you like to yield?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I'd like to yield. And I have spoken to legal, and basically it's debatable. It can be considered, like many things that we've discussed, but it's not necessarily out of the ordinary. It's discussing the current bill being introduced. Well, Madam Speaker, if I'm sorry, I don't mean to be out of order, but I think the previous question was on my amendment from the prior speaker before we went on recess. I'm not sure if I was able to address that with the good senator.
Senator, the previous amendment to your main amendment was objected, and there was a vote, and that did not make it. So we are back to your amendment as proffered.
And then I believe it was before we went on recess, before the amendment to the amendment, there was a question on, as well from Senator San Augustine, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure if I answered that.
There was an objection to, Senator San Augustine objected to your amendment. It was after you had answered, gave your presentation, Senator Joe said he objected to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And during that recess, I did have the opportunity to discuss further with the colleagues, and I'm willing to amend my amendment at a certain point where you...
Sir, I can afford you that opportunity at your closing. So anyone else wishing to speak on Senator Jim Moylan's? Clerk. The response from Senator Marsh Taitsinu, who had the floor, was that did he inquire with legal? And the answer was there was a conversation with legal.
That's correct, Madam Speaker. And now Senator
Taitsinu still has the floor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Senator Taitsinu?
Sejus Maasi for that answer. And in looking again at the title, where the title is very specific, yeah, at least for my interpretation, it goes beyond, this amendment goes far beyond what's germane in the title. But Sejus Maasi for letting me know that legal had not been able to provide like a clear yes, that it's germane.
Thank you, Senator Taitsinu. There has been an objection. Senator Mary Torres on the Moylan amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's a lot of concern about whether this is germane and whether this is even necessary to the spirit of the bill as introduced. I think that if you look at what 10 GCA talks about, and this amendment cites it, we're talking about emergency health powers under Chapter 19. And in Article 5, that has to do with special powers during a state of public health emergency with the management of property. In Article 1, the two sections that the author of this amendment discussed was Section 19608, which is licensing and appointment of health personnel, and Section 19403, which is the effect of declaration. I think that in terms of wanting us to be transparent and report, and Article 2 of this bill has certain reporting of personnel hired, I do not think that this amendment is inconsistent. And I think if in the spirit of want to overextend ourselves and capture everything, including management of property, seizure of property, hiring of personnel during this state of emergency, it has a place in there. So I do not object to this. I think we're overextending ourselves, but it is not objectionable as presented, this amendment. So I would say, for the sake of being thorough, I would support it.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Anyone else on the Moylan amendment? Senator Therese Terlahi, you are recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a little torn on this amendment because I agree with it, right? It's asking for information really about what the actions of the governor or the public health authority are during the state of emergency. That's actually what I just heard the mayor on the radio this morning requesting. I mean, it's what the community, it's beneficial to the legislature to be very well informed. And I know that the doctors and the administration have come up with a plan, and prior to that plan, we had a pandemic plan that was established by public health. But these plans have been changing, and I think that just emphasizes for us, we want to hear the changes as they are being made, so that the community can all go along with those changes. For example, there's a plan in place for how they are going to expand hospital capacity, and I would like the legislature to be briefed on that plan, and I think the community should also be briefed. And I understand, too, that when we're in the middle of an emergency, I know I don't want to tie the hands of the governor and require her to do all kinds of things. So the statute was pretty broad that way. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, this thing just keeps moving around. But so I would just, whether this amendment gets passed or not, I would just like to put it on the record that I think it is helpful for the community to hear all the plans, all the actions that have taken place. We saw I think last Friday was when the transfer document actually came down that showed the transfers that had been made for the isolation, and the other one, the quarantine and isolation hotels. That's the first time we saw those in actual writing, Madam Speaker, what the amounts were going to be, and we have not seen the contracts. So I think it's reasonable that, we want to see those as they're going along before we have incurred, what's reasonable? It's just to be brought along with the plan so that we can all buy into this plan. I think that's one of the reasons we're having such a real backlash, if I might say, against enforcement. And I just think that it would help us to inform them of all of our plans, of how serious these plans are, and why at every step of the way, we continue to make these different actions, and that they are consistent with our overall plan. So I would just encourage that. My problem with the amendment, when I said I'm torn, is that it's saying that the governor shall report within 5 days, and for her to report every action, and then that would be ideal. I just feel like it might. I don't want it to be the reason she vetoes this bill, and I don't want it to be the reason she says, the legislature is impeding her ability to deal with this health emergency. In the health emergency statute, she's required to report transfers within 10 days. She's also, the public health medical people are supposed to report also information to the public health authority. So there's that type of reporting, but it's true that in this statute there isn't much reporting that's required. So in the big scheme of things, this amendment would be very, very nice. I just worry that we would be accused of impeding, her movement. But I would say that even if this amendment is passed, she reports. That's the ideal, and that they report their actions. I think that's only reasonable, that the public would want to know what actions are being taken. And if they have some kind of administrative issue that they can't report that quickly, then I'm hoping it will not impede, Madam Speaker, at least. I don't know if that's clear, but that's the only reason why I'm torn against this amendment. It's because that 5 days for any action. And as we've known, I think they've been taking quite a few actions that we are not totally aware of. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator Therese. Anyone else on the Moylan amendment? Anyone else? If not, Senator Taitano, you did already have the floor. Do you have on the amendment? You spoke. If there's nobody else, Senator Moylan, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate all my colleagues' recommendations and discussion on the amendment. And I would like to, with that consideration, I'd like to amend my amendment to point out the things that my colleagues have discussed. First, I would, and we're drafting the changes for the amendment. First, I would like this amendment to be specifically, as discussed, COVID-related. Specifically COVID-related as one of the points that were addressed during this discussion of the amendment. So amending it to include COVID-related.
Senator Jim, on what line? Can you just give me the line after what word?
Okay.
Just to be, in order here.
We can add it in as the last sentence to the original amendment.
I will allow that amendment,
Okay.
that this amendment will, can you just restate it again? After the word chapter, period, close quote.
As addressed for COVID-19 related emergency situation. Madam Speaker. Okay.
And you can allow legal to make the necessary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And
On that motion, is there an objection? Senator Therese?
I just wanted to use this opportunity to maybe rephrase a little bit about what I said earlier. I think it was maybe not that very clear, but I support the amendment to narrow it down to be this COVID-related, this one emergency that we are under right now, to require reporting. I still have the concern that, requiring her to report everything within 5 days, and we're saying every action is just a little broad, so it's going to, she might argue it impedes, but I'm hoping she takes it in good faith and that it's reasonable.
So on
Wait,
yes,
Madam
sorry.
Speaker, yeah, it's just because, as a legislature, at least I'll speak for myself, my Committee on Health, we've had a very hard time. Because of the situation, we are unable to call these people down here for oversight hearings, to lay out the plans, which is what we would normally do. We wouldn't ask for reports, we would call them down and just make them report. But we're unable to do that, and I'm very hesitant to impede their work. I'm trying so hard not to impede anything that they are doing. Even when I ask questions, I try to limit, once a day maybe. I mean, I'm really very much trying to not impede what they are doing or interfere, because I very much realize this is an emergency, and that is the reason why they have been given these authorities. And I want to exercise oversight authority, but it's difficult. So in the absence of that, reporting becomes very much more important, Madam Speaker. And it's after the fact, but that's fine. At least we know and we can follow along. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Speaker Nelson, Senator Lee.
So, Madam Speaker, if I may ask a question to the proffer of the amendment.
State your question.
Do you believe that whether the governor, the executive branch is given this requirement through law, would change in any way, the legislature would change in any way the actions that she would be doing?
Vice Speaker, can you?
Okay, let me, because there's a lot of double talk here, Madam Speaker. This is a good amendment, but we don't want to impact what our response to this crisis is. And so I'm asking the proffer of the amendment if us including this provision in the current bill will impact our actions in any way. Would it have any weight in how we respond?
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Senator Moylan, would you like to use the Vice Speaker's question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I would like to yield to the Vice Speaker's question. Will this amendment cause difficulty for our governor to carry forth her actions in.
No, let me rephrase my question.
I will allow you to restate the question.
Okay. I don't want to say if this amendment will do anything because this amendment will require us to hear the plans, will require the governor, will require the executive branch to lay the plans out before us, to report to us within 5 calendar days of the closing month of each month. And so we all know that to do this data collection, to do this analysis, to do this reporting takes a lot of time. And so we don't want to take away time from the executive branch to respond to the needs of our community, to respond to the needs of what is the impact, to respond to the needs of the impact of this virus. We don't want to take time away from them. And so I'm asking that if this amendment will be a trigger point for the legislature to come and tell the governor or the executive branch, no, stop what you're doing. Do we even have that within our power? Or to please proceed? You see what I'm saying, Madam Speaker? Because this is a good amendment. It provides transparency. But there's people, some of us maybe, that it's a political amendment too. So if we don't vote for this amendment, we're saying we don't want transparency, but we're trying to make it very clear that we want transparency, but is this really an amendment that we should be proffering now? Or is this an amendment that we should do later on once everything has settled? Because we have yet to reach the apex of the coronavirus. And so now things are unfolding. We have lost some people in our families already to this virus. And what are we doing taking away time more from the executive branch for a reporting measure if the reporting measure can be done at a later time?
Vice Speaker, I'm just going to take a moment's recess.
Okay.
Imina 35 na legislatura in Guahan is back from recess. Senator Jim, would you like to yield to the question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to yield to the question, but also to end the questioning, I wish to withdraw my amendment. Madam Speaker.
On the amendment to the amendment, or the,
On the initial amendment that was made, Madam Speaker.
so I'm going to motion to withdraw the amendment to the Moylan amendment. Are there any objections? If no objection, motion carries. And then motion to withdraw the main amendment. Are there any objections? Hearing or seeing none, motion carries. It's 12:25 right now. Vice Speaker?
Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to recess till 2:30 this afternoon, 14:30 hours.
We are in recess to 2:30.